Good afternoon, and welcome into another episode of Live from the Plains. Happy Sunday to you. My name is Daniel Locke. This is Logan Fowler, and the two of us are recovering from about how long were we in Athens?
We were there a good bit. We got there about 9:30 Central Time, so 9:30 to about 7:30 Central Time. So lots of driving.
Yeah, appreciate you being my chauffeur yesterday. I enjoyed passenger princess duties. Um, yeah, good day.
Yeah,
And honestly, the football could have been a lot worse.
it could have been. I enjoyed the trip. I definitely thought that the press box and the media setup was very good. They definitely take care of the media there.
They
They fed,
do.
fed us well. Athens, that was my first trip to Athens. So, like we said yesterday, maybe we weren't quite in the right spots. Maybe we didn't walk around the town quite good enough. But I mean, we took a lap around the stadium yesterday, and I just wasn't really impressed with the game day vibes in Athens yesterday.
I wasn't either.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there were tailgate spots, and you know, you knew there was a game there, but I don't know, I just wasn't super impressed with the whole game day vibes around Athens yesterday. But all in all, it was a pretty good trip.
Yeah, I would agree. And kind of one thing that stuck out to me is just how late the crowd seemed to arrive. Because we were talking about this on the way home yesterday. 30 minutes before kickoff, it felt like the stadium was empty.
Yeah, yeah, I noticed that, and then it also felt like about midway through the third quarter, there was like a empty section kind of in the middle, like not the lower bowl, but not the upper deck. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but well, I guess when your team is, well, I was gonna say, I guess when your team is winning by that much, but they weren't in in
No.
the third quarter. So
Yeah, like it was a close game entering the fourth.
I don't know.
Auburn was driving with the chance to go down and make it a one-score game.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I didn't get barked at, didn't get pitched for it. So um, I'd say it was a pretty successful day in Athens.
Yeah, I think so too. Um, we didn't have to get on the road too early. I was home by 11, which
Yeah.
means you were home by like 10:40. So I know we're both feeling a little bit under the weather today,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I guess that's just the Athens effect. Anyway, so Auburn takes a 31-13 loss to fall to 2-4 on the season and 0-3 in SEC play, and it's not getting any easier.
No. Um, yeah, obviously, I don't think there's any questioning that Georgia was the better team on the field yesterday. I mean, I don't think anybody's questioning that. But I mean, just the biggest storyline for Auburn, continues to be the self-inflicted wounds. Um, it's happened in every loss that they've had this year. Happened again yesterday. I mean, you had a chance if you clean up some mistakes in that game in the first half, and then obviously there in the third quarter, and to start off the fourth quarter, you've got a game, you got a pretty good game down the stretch there. So they obviously kind of ran away with it there in the fourth quarter. Georgia did, but like I said, I mean, it's a self-inflicted wound. You start off the game on offense with a 5-yard sack. The offensive line, the left side of the offensive line, it didn't even look like they touched anybody on that play.
No.
Um, you punt the ball off, and on Georgia's first offensive drive, you have a chance to kind of gain some confidence with what looks to be a 3-and-out stop for Auburn, and then a substitution penalty, keeps the drive going, and they go 11 plays, 75 yards for a touchdown. So it's just things like that. Time management yesterday, especially right there before the half, those last two drives of the first half for Auburn offensively, time management, I get they were kind of in the back and they're on 5-yard line there. So, I mean, play calling is kind of tough in that situation, I get that, but time management wasn't great. Um, and then obviously you've got to start the 4th quarter off, the Peyton Thorne, keeper on 4th and 1. Freeze talked about it at his press conference last night. He said that that was not the call. He said that Thorne completely abandoned what they were supposed to do. He said it was a dive left to Jarquez. Um, so that's kind of baffling. But I mean, it's just the same story kind of every week. When are they going to get the little things cleaned up? And it doesn't seem like they're going to.
No. Um, Maybe that's going to be a consistent thing we see out of this team this year because you're 6 weeks in, the season's halfway over, and you're making week one, week two mistakes that should have been ironed out against, you know, that's what you play teams such as Alabama A&M and New Mexico for,
Hmm.
is to get these errors ironed out. Yet you're still making them. And, you get a week off, a very timely bye week. But now you've got to go on the road and take on. I haven't seen the new AP poll yet. I'm sure they dropped out of the top 10, but
Uh, who, Alabama?
Missouri.
Oh, Missouri, yes. I'm sorry, I was looking at
Okay.
stats. Yes, Missouri did drop out of the top 10.
Do you know what they are now?
I don't have it pulled up. I looked at it before the show. It was Texas takes over at 1. You got Ohio State, Oregon in there. Georgia's in
Yeah.
the Penn State. You got Bama falling to 7.
Well,
I'd have to look at Missouri though.
yeah. Anyway, you've got to go face another team who is, I still believe, very good, even though they lost yesterday. Um, but a conference game on the road, you never really know. It's not so much that Missouri lost; it's just they got. I didn't expect them to get blown out like that.
Right.
But sorry, go ahead.
Was just gonna say, I mean, like, to add on to your point where you're kind of going with this, I sound like a broken record, but and I won't stay on this topic long. It's just the wins were there. They were
Yeah.
there. I mean,
Even yesterday,
yeah,
there are like 4 or 5 things you can point at and just go like, if these things go differently, who knows?
yeah. Um, you know, I thought Auburn played a decent game aside from the unforced errors. Had 337 yards of total offense. Jarquez Hunter was a bright spot on the offense. KLS had another good game. Um, 200 yards passing, 137 yards rushing. I mean, they moved the ball pretty well against Georgia. I think Auburn scored on 68.75% of its red zone opportunities thus far this season. Um, and then yesterday, I think the ultimate deciding factor is, you get to the red zone if you're Auburn and you're not scoring touchdowns. You obviously you win a game with, especially a game like that against the top 5 team in the country, you win it with touchdowns and not field goals. So Georgia, comparatively, they were 4 for 4 with 4 touchdowns in the red zone, and then added a field goal late in the game. So that's kind of another deciding factor in that game, is when you do get the opportunity to score touchdowns, you've got to take advantage of those opportunities. Still think Jarquez didn't get enough carries. 13 carries, it's not enough.
No.
Not enough. I'm not really sure. I don't get that. I really
I
don't.
don't either.
Um, like I've said, you've got a struggling quarterback. I mean, it's by this time, after 2 years with him at the helm, you're 6 games into this season. Like, at what point is it okay? Like, you're really not a serviceable guy back there.
No.
You can. At what point is it? Hey, let's do what works. Let's run the
Mhm.
football. Let's
And
do.
and to kind of build on that, Um, to give credit where credit's due here, our good friend and assistant sports editor at the Auburn Plainsman, Grace Heim, tweeted out after Auburn's first drive, "You can feel Peyton Thorne's nerves through the TV," and that was so true, and you really could, and you shouldn't be able to tell that the team shouldn't be able to tell that its quarterback's nervous. It just
Right.
shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's so important for just other members of the team to look at that position and just see never too high, never too low, just kind of a straight line of mentality, and that's just not really. It's just clear that like body language just isn't great.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, right there. And I mean, it almost kind of feels like, aside from, if you were to take Keandre Lambert Smith off of this football team, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that offense might be in really bad shape if you didn't have him. Because I mean, Malcolm Simmons has stepped up offensively as a freshman. I think he's done a good job as a freshman coming into the SEC. But your other guys, like, Cam Coleman's not been impressive. Uh,
no,
I mean, there was one play yesterday, Peyton Thorne, he actually did a pretty good job eluding pressure in the pocket, and he escaped. And, it looked as if, man, he could have cut that thing up and got, 30, 40 yards on a run down the Georgia sideline. And Cam Coleman's just kind of standing there looking around, instead of finding somebody to block, and then that guy made the tackle. It's just like, I get it, that's a freshman, and it's his first, game against the top 5 team in the SEC. But that's just football etiquette, man. You got to know. Yeah, I mean, go put a hat on somebody. So I mean, like I said, little things like that. It's little things like that all across the board for this Auburn team that just is demoralizing. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, I think that Auburn played a solid game defensively. There were some missed tackles, a couple of busted coverages, but not much. But man, you got to give credit to Carson Beck. That man looked like a smooth operator in the pocket yesterday.
yeah,
Um, I mean, yeah, he wasn't necessarily under duress the whole time, but it was, his eyes were going from one, two, three, boom, check down, and he got the ball out of his hands. Um, and that's where the majority of his yards through the air came, were on just little short, quick routes, check down routes, and that's, I mean, that's how you move an offense successfully. I mean, when things aren't there down the field, you take what you can get and you move on, and that's the difference in a guy like Carson Beck and Peyton Thorne.
yeah. Um, Carson Beck knows what he's doing, and I don't think there's much dispute on that. I think he's going to hear his name called pretty early in April. Um, he might hear his name called in December as well for something else. Um, but those two things being the NFL draft and Heisman Trophy, if you're not up on football, which is okay. This is the learning environment for everyone. You don't have to be a football expert or even a sports expert to listen here. We got you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean,
Maybe.
obviously,
I'm not going to make the joke I was about to make.
obviously, played a good game. ETN was pretty electric with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, he did great. Let's see.
But
How did he finish?
let's see here.
88 carries and 88 yards and 2 touchdowns off of
Yeah,
16 carries. Not 88 carries. That would be insane.
yeah, I mean, he had a
I don't
pretty
think
good day.
offenses even get 88 plays.
Um, he also led the team in receiving with 6 catches and 36 yards. So they had 9 different receivers catch a ball. Um, just kidding. He had the most targets. He didn't leave the team in receiving. But needless to say, he had a good day out of the backfield.
He
Uh,
wasn't far from leading in receiving, though.
right. Um, But obviously, you go to the defense, and you got to look at one bright spot there for Auburn, and that's Keldrick Falk. Um,
Yes.
Keldrick Falk, man, came into the game leading the Power Four in quarterback hurries. That guy's been a man on a mission all year. Definitely, I think he's undeniably Auburn's best defensive player.
Yeah.
Came in and got 2 sacks yesterday. So, I mean, hats off to him. He played a phenomenal game. Um, kinda got banged up there in the second half a little bit, so this bye week is coming at a great time for him.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean that guy he played his butt off yesterday.
And I feel like this might be fairly obvious, but he is him and Ken Lee have probably been the two most important pieces of Auburn's 2023 recruiting class. Here now that they're not the newest class anymore, and funny, neither of those guys were Auburn commits going in the National Signing Day. They were both flips. Keldrick Falk to Florida State and Ken Lee to Ohio State. And now it's clear why two of the best programs in the country, despite what Florida State's been going through this year, like I still think that that's a true statement. It's clear why those two huge programs were high on these guys.
Yeah, I mean they are definitely ballers. Can Lee had he's been fairly solid in a struggling secondary group this year. Um, I mean, obviously, I don't think he's played phenomenal football, but he did have a couple of plays made on him yesterday. But at the same time, those were just good catches from the Georgia receivers. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of clear that those guys are a level above everybody else.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let, let's let's get the questions rolling here. What was your high and your low from Auburn yesterday? My high is Keldrick Falk. My low is play calling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can argue with you there. Definitely the low is, I mean, just a sloppy play. Um, penalties. Not that they necessarily had a lot for a lot of yards. They were just very untimely penalties. Um, and like I mentioned with sloppy play, downfield blocking, missed tackles, busted coverages, things of that nature. It's definitely a low. And then a high, I mean, I think, like you said, Keldrick Falk and Jarquez Hunter. I think those are really the only two highs you can take from that game, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what does yesterday do for Auburn's chances of making a bowl game? Because my kind of take there is like, you go into that one 2-3 and no one had Auburn winning that game yesterday. So I don't think they really change as of yesterday. Now, Missouri's still a game that people are giving Auburn a chance in. So, especially with how they lost to Texas A&M yesterday. Um, so if Auburn can't pull off the win against Missouri, because they need four more to get it done, you're looking at, I think, going from about a 25% chance down to like a 15% chance. Because then you need the Kentucky game for sure. You need Vanderbilt, which we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's looking that's looking scarier in Kentucky right now, in my opinion. Then you need ULM and you need Texas A&M. So that's your path to 6 wins at this point. If you don't um, beat Missouri. Now, if you beat Missouri, then you can get by without either Kentucky, Vanderbilt, or Texas A&M. But I don't know. The chances of it's looking like the chances of Auburn going bowling this winter are getting slimmer and slimmer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think yesterday, like you said, really had a much of an effect on Auburn's chances of a bowl game because I think everybody kind of thought that they were going to lose that game going into the season. But yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the coffin. I think that A win in October is crucial. Like, you have to pick up a win in October.
Yeah.
It's not I mean, you have to. So
And if you don't, Alabama becomes a must win if you want to
yeah,
go to a bowl game.
yeah,
And that's another, like, I feel like going into the season, Auburn had a bunch of games that they were expected to win, two games that were highly, highly doubtful, and everything else was a coin toss. But we've seen two that were supposed to be pretty solid wins, and one of the coin toss so far absolutely go away. So now we're looking at these games that are you needed these early wins in order for these games to be, just not as much pressure on them, and you didn't get those. So, like you were saying, they have to win one of these next two.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, like you said, doesn't get any easier. The first 5, 6 games of this schedule were meant for you to pick up some wins and make it a little easier for you down the stretch, and that's just they haven't done that.
Not at all. So, looking ahead now, obviously by this point, everybody knows what happened in Tuscaloosa, or not Tuscaloosa, in Nashville yesterday. Um, First of all, me and Jacob Waters, who covers Auburn as well as high school sports for the OA News, one of our a good friend of Logan and I as well. Logan and I are good friends with everyone. We're great people to be friends with, if I do say so myself. So yeah. We were talking about, is that the biggest win in Vanderbilt program history? And it's the first time it's their first win over a top 5 opponent ever.
Yeah, this
So
is the number 1 team in the country too. So,
right.
I mean, yeah, that's
I don't see what would beat it.
no, there's I mean, as long as I've been alive, there's absolutely nothing that can beat that. So,
Because at first I was thinking maybe under James Franklin when they won 9 games in back-to-back years, maybe there's something from one of those seasons that could compete. And I forgot to go and look at those. But and
well, yeah, I mean, like you say, the top 5 win in program history. Alabama's obviously coming off the huge win from Georgia. They're on top of college football. Um, so I mean, where with Alabama rolling in with the pedigree that they had, that's I mean, there's nothing that could top that. I think for Vanderbilt.
no, and I said it after the first game of the season. I think that this is the best Vanderbilt team since James Franklin's been there.
They are definitely living up to it.
So
So crazy that they went to Georgia State and lost, though.
I know, like that's even more of a head scratcher at this point. And it's hard to believe that that really happened. And then in the same year, they upset number 1 Alabama.
Yeah,
Like that doesn't make any sense. But that's college football. But on November 3rd, Auburn has to play that team. And at this point, I think I'm more confident in Auburn's chances against Missouri and Kentucky than I am Vanderbilt on the road.
yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm not gonna go. Listen, I know that was a great win. That's a good football team, Vanderbilt. They are. Diego Pavia obviously is a baller. Clark Lee is doing some good things, but I'm not gonna go. There's just so many different factors that play into every game on on any given Saturday.
Sure.
Um, so you're a month away from playing that game. Yes, Vanderbilt could go on and win out the rest until November the 3rd. They could lose. I don't know what's going to happen. Um, but Auburn is a better team all around than Vanderbilt. The game's being played in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And I'm not going to go as far to pick an upset in Jordan-Hare on November 3rd just quite yet. Even with what happened yesterday, I still think that's a win for Auburn. Now, is it definitely a question mark, an asterisk beside that game? Absolutely. Am I confident that Auburn will win that game? No. No, I'm not. But with that being said, I still think that that's a I still think that Auburn's going to be favored. I still think that Auburn is they're I don't think they're going to lose that game right now. Speaking right now.
Yeah, Jordan-Hare Stadium's different, and I think even if Auburn loses these next two, which would effectively literally kill their chances of going to a bowl game, or no, it wouldn't. It would just make them basically zero, because they would have to win out. But I think that Jordan-Hare will still be rocking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I'm not. I don't know. I can't quite pick Vandy to win over Auburn. But
I can't either.
with that being said, I mean, obviously you've got Pavia coming in who just steamrolled through Auburn last year. Cal came in this year. Arkansas came in. Oklahoma came in. Just absolutely torched Auburn on their home turf. So I'm not going to say it can't happen at all. Um, and as we get closer, I might even think that that's a sure upset for Auburn or for Vandy. Um,
What is he? Is there a world where that wouldn't even be an upset? Like, could Vanderbilt be favored going into that game? I
yeah,
could see that happening.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
If it was this week, they might be.
I don't think Auburn wins a football game until they get to Vanderbilt. So
I'm not quite convinced that they don't win one of these next two yet, just because I feel like they're gonna win one they shouldn't. Um, and I was looking at it. I forget what exactly plays into it, but the Missouri game kind of is prime trap game material from what I remember looking at for Missouri. So maybe there, it's either that or Texas A&M. I think is going to be that game this year. But you just kind of got to see.
yeah, what a wild day of college football it was yesterday.
Yeah, because
Uh,
Arkansas beat Tennessee, right?
Arkansas beats Tennessee. Michigan loses to Washington. Vandy beats Alabama. USC loses. Where am I? I'm missing. I've got to be missing something. Oh, Miami. That's the one. Miami comes back 35-10 from down 35-10. That was crazy. I mean, I went to bed I think I went to bed at the start of the fourth quarter of that game, and I was like, well, there's no chance that I had to come back here. And I wake up and I check, and it's 39-38. Miami won the game. I mean, just really, wow. Great day of college football.
Yeah, really was. And hopefully next week's slate is even better.
Yep.
Um,
We'll both be sitting in front of a TV without a computer next
yeah,
week.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I
Yeah,
really am.
I can't wait.
That's going to be nice. Not that we don't love what we do, because we absolutely do, and we're thankful to be in the positions that we're in. But this is a grind, and there's a lot of time and effort that goes into covering sports. Um, Even though it is, I feel like a lot of times looked at as a glamour profession, which it
Yeah,
should be, because this is the coolest thing in the world, and I'm so thankful to get to do it. But that doesn't mean it's not hard, and it doesn't mean it's not without its challenges.
very,
So
very well said, Daniel.
thank you, I appreciate it. It's what I do. Yeah, but excited to just kind of spend next weekend relaxing with friends and family. It's Auburn's fall break, so definitely looking forward to going home and spending some time with my parents. I haven't seen them in, I guess, about 2 months, which is, I guess, relatively normal for a college kid around this time, but that'll be nice. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me as well.
So I imagine we'll still have a show this week.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any media availability this week, so there's nothing coming from Freeze on Monday. No players to talk to on Tuesday. Freeze is on the teleconference on Wednesday, but that's very short amount of time, and so maybe we can we'll have a little basketball coming out. We'll get a basketball schedule soon, I would imagine, for this week, and
Yeah, probably later today.
so yeah, we'll just have to play that by ear, and and see what the week holds. Well, obviously, I mean, never rule out somebody coming on and talking with us. Be a good week to talk a little bit of recruiting. Obviously, we hadn't touched on the Deuce Knight commitment, I don't think. A
We
couple
haven't.
weeks
That's
ago.
right.
Deuce Knight commits to Auburn. Um, Huge pickup for Freeze. They got the number 3 class in the country. Kale Ellis this morning reclassified from the 26 to the 25 class. So that's some more good news there on that recruiting front. I mean, number 3 class in the country with a 2-4 record with the product on the field being the way it is. I mean, that's pretty daggum impressive right there.
Yeah, and I really feel like it speaks to Freeze's, or not just Freeze, but Freeze and his staff's ability to recruit. And they're really selling that message that we're just a few key pieces away. And time will tell whether or not that's true. Um, but yeah, the momentum is not slowing down on the recruiting trail. And I feel like finally getting Deuce Knight to flip can really help Auburn's chances with a few other key players.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They lose out on the commitment yesterday from Usman Chroma, the running back. He committed to Georgia on the same day that Auburn played Georgia. Really felt like Auburn was probably going to pick up that commitment until just a couple of weeks ago. Um, but they're probably not done recruiting him. But they want 2 backs in this class, from what I've heard. So I'm sure they'll push for a couple of more high school guys, but that also, you can never rule out the portal today. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, still waiting on a decision from Babalola, the 5-star tackle out of Kansas. With Deuce Knight, Sam Turner, Caleb Cunningham, guys like those could come back into play. And then obviously, Auburn is on the rise right now for the 5-star corner out of Parker, Naheem Offord, currently committed to Ohio State. So, um, you know, a lot to tune in for on the recruiting front here in these last few months before early signing day.
Yeah, and if Auburn could really just add a few real quality pieces to kind of close off this class, I think Babalola would be huge. Alford would be huge. In my opinion, if you're Auburn, those are the top two. That if you
Yeah.
can't have anybody else, that's who you want.
Yeah.
And then obviously adding Caleb Cunningham would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see if you add both of those in Babalola and Alford, I think it's gosh, Auburn's third, Ohio State's up there, and is it Alabama number? Ohio State's one and Alabama two, according to whatever site you're looking at. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Ohio State's one.
They
But
are.
basically,
Well,
what I'm getting at is if you take a guy like Naheem Offord away from Ohio State, obviously you gain the points there for Offord, and then Ohio State loses them. So, and then adding another 5-star in Babalola, I mean, you are potentially looking at if Auburn finishes this class out with an absolute bang, you're looking at the number 1 class in the country.
sure. And it's wild that the team's 2-6, 2 months away from, or 2.5 months away from National Signing Day, and that's a real, or yeah, 2-4. Sorry, got a little ahead of myself. I'm on the
Already,
Vanderbilt week apparently.
already predicting on the Vanderbilt week. Already predicting the 2 losses for Missouri and Kentucky.
I feel like I'll be in good company. But yeah, that's amazing. And if Auburn can pull that off, that could really, because that's Hugh Freeze's biggest selling point on keeping people, you know, fired up about him right now,
Yeah,
and keeping people on board with his ability to get this job done.
yeah.
Well, I think that's all I've got, unless you've got anything else.
No, I'm all good.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Daniel J. Locke. Follow me on Instagram if you want at the Daniel Locke. You can check out my written work for Auburn Tigers on SI.com. And yeah, that's about it for me.
Yes, sir. You can follow me on X or Twitter at Logan F. Fowler. Find my written work with 1819 News and the Auburn Plainsman.
Yep. Well, that has been our Georgia reaction show, and we'll definitely have something later this week, and then potentially something next Sunday. We'll see. We'll keep you updated on our social medias about what we're going to do with bye week coverage. But thank you for tuning into the Live from the Plains podcast. We will speak with you again soon.